Welcome to Inner Shift podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Jaclyn Albergoni. She is from Australia, but now resides in Los Angeles. She's someone, after listening to this podcast, you will learn so much from her. This is someone who went through childhood trauma and did not give up. She tried so many things. Her passion for acting really helped her to become what she is today. If you are going through any type of traumas, anxiety, panic attack, depression, addiction, you really want to listen to this podcast. She shares her wisdom, her personal stories. It's not easy to something you talk about. Jaclyn is a meditation coach, an actor, author, and CEO of the Animal Rights Organization. She is also a founder of the meditation channel. This is something unique. She doesn't script her meditation. She channels her meditation and records it on YouTube. She shares her signature meditation method and transformative technique that works with the subconscious mind to uncover hidden blocks and release patterns. Through this approach, Jaclyn helps clients reprogram limiting beliefs and aligns with their highest potential. Welcome, Jaclyn, to my second episode of Inner Shift podcast. Yes,
Thank you, Sanju.
You're welcome. So we start with a meditation.
Yeah, let's definitely start with the meditation. So, what kind of meditation would you like me to tune into? I usually channel my meditations and see what the collective needs at that time. I am feeling at this moment that it's just, we probably need something about just a frequency upgrade.
Okay.
To like elevate our frequency to align more with the versions of ourselves that is healed, that is successful, that is open and receptive to possibilities and miracles.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, so very simple, everybody. Whenever you're ready, take a moment, close your eyes. Maybe give yourself a sigh. Just give yourself a moment to relax, just checking in with the body. And as you are right here, right now, just beginning to tune into yourself, slowly, slowly quietening down the outside world and amplifying your inner world. I'm beginning to listen, to connect. And I want you to listen with your heart, with your energy, with your emotions. And just notice what comes up. Maybe your mind begins to wander, begins to think about what they did yesterday, what you need to do later on, and just bring it back to the breath, bring it back to the present moment. And so today we call forth a higher frequency. We invite it to be channeled to you and through you to help you uplift your energy so that you can align with your highest timeline, with your highest self, with your most empowered self, allowing you to bring about blessings, abundance, love, joy, whatever it is that you are working on at this time. And so whenever you're ready, I want you to begin to visualize a beautiful circle of white light forming around you. This is a very powerful celestial energy. I'm just visualizing it, and beginning to feel this frequency activate as this circle seals. The energy begins to move up and surround your body from head to toe. Particles of this white energy begins to move in the center and wash over your body, cleansing and clearing your energy field, purifying your aura, washing away anything and all that is unwanted, unwelcome at this time, and just allowing you to feel a little more lighter, a little more connected, a little more centered. And it allows your aura to activate and expand now. Any heaviness, any toxicity, any negativity is gently being washed away. And wherever you are now, I want you to connect to some higher power, whatever that means to you. This could be your higher self, this could be the creator, this could be God, it doesn't really matter, but something that you feel strongly connected to. And when you are ready, I want you to visualize this beautiful light from above shine down and wash over you, elevating your energy now to a whole other level, taking you now to the higher realms, to energies that are far beyond this reality, far beyond this world, connecting you to frequencies and information that allow you to access your highest timeline and highest potential. It's almost like you're tuning in and plugging in, and now you're beginning to download this energy. So as you breathe in, you're going to breathe in this light, feel it enter your lungs, wash over your heart. And on the out breath, you're releasing anything and all within your body, your emotions, your DNA that is not in alignment to it. Do this for a few breaths. Seeing this beautiful, pure, crystal light enter your heart, enter your body, detoxing your system, upgrading your frequency and your DNA. And as you are connected now, I invite you maybe to ask a question or to request something that can help you at this time. As you are connected, trust the information that you see, feel, and receive. And you may just feel it, you may see it, you may just know it, you may just see a color. You may feel or see nothing, and that's perfectly fine too. No expectations. And if there is a situation in your life right now that is challenging you, I invite you to send this frequency towards it. Now, we're not shifting somebody else's energy. If somebody else is involved, you're just showing up in this light. But usually we're inviting this energy essentially to release the blocks, the negativity, challenges, so that we can align into a flow state, giving us the solutions, removing the obstacles, or clearing out anything that is not in alignment with who we are and what we desire. Just blessing your life, blessing anything that is around you and that is connected to in this physical realm. Just continuing now to receive this beautiful, powerful light, allowing it to expand even more throughout your body, entering your blood, your muscles, your bones, slowly, slowly becoming one with you. As you begin to see yourself glowing in this beautiful, powerful, divine energy. Feeling strong, feeling aligned, feeling clear. Now just taking a moment of gratitude. Thank you for this energy. Thank you for this peace. Thank you for this moment. And so at any point throughout the day, whenever you feel like your energy is going down, just take a second to reconnect to this light, as it's always accessible to you and it's always connected to you. And so now we're going to begin to gently return back, so that beautiful circle of white light that was formed around us gently fades away, allowing you to slowly, slowly come back into the present moment, to become aware of your surroundings once again, the temperature of the air, clothes on your skin. Just before you come back, I want you to check in with yourself and just notice any shifts. Notice if you feel any lighter or any more connected. And in love and in light, we're going to begin now to come back into an awakened state. So whenever you're ready with all the toes and your fingers, and then slowly, slowly open your eyes.
I feel very light, calm. It's just very relaxed. Just feel at ease. Truly appreciate doing meditation on this podcast.
Yeah, it's very interesting how in meditation, people feel the energy a lot of the times. And, I think that one of the most powerful things that I find within the meditation lately is declaring these things for yourself and having the strength to ask for this. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I can't say that, or that's too much, or that's a little bit too out there. But if you give yourself permission to accept that and declare that for yourself and say, I'm worthy of this and I am asking for this, it's amazing how much people can shift and find that connection to something outside of themselves, if you like.
You're from Australia, now living in Los Angeles. How did your spiritual journey started?
Yeah, I feel like I was always very spiritual. I think I always had a connection to something. I was very much aware of something else. So yeah, I was born in Australia. And then when I was really bad with time, one of the things that I struggle with. When I was 5 years old, I think I was 5 or 6, we decided to move to Italy. And my father's Italian, my mom's Brazilian, and my dad wanted to go back to Italy, so we moved there, and we were there until I was about 12, and then my mother, my brother, and myself moved back to Australia because my parents separated. And there was a lot of things, unfortunately, that happened to me in my childhood that caused a lot of trauma, and it was very early on, and I was sexually assaulted as a child for many years, and it obviously caused a lot of trauma. And then later on, even my parents' divorce was very traumatic. My mother attempted suicide, and that caused, of course, all sorts of issues. And yeah, and then we moved, and then my mother was very depressed after that, of course, because she loved father and she would have done anything for him. And so there was just a lot of suffering and a lot of pain in my very early years. There was some joy, of course, and some good times, but I unfortunately have a hard time still, because I think your brain suppresses a lot of memories, especially when you have a lot of trauma. So in my teenage years, my mom, unfortunately, she's not a very dominating person. You know what I mean? She's a very gentle person, and she's yeah, so she didn't know how to control us, because by the time we moved back to Australia, my brother and I had pretty much been on our own for a while. My father was just never at home. He was working most of the time, and he would only come on the weekends. So he kind of left my brother and I as teenagers living with ourselves. And you leave two teenagers who are already going through all sorts of trauma and all sorts of things. It just kind of got a little bit out of hand. And basically, it was just a mess by the time I got back. And I was very angry. I was a very violent teenager. I was very angry. And that's how I dealt with what was happening. I think my anger was my way of feeling like I had some kind of control or some form of power. And a lot of that anger was put out, and a lot of that anger was put towards myself. So, yeah, so long story short, eventually my mother and I just did not get along. I was getting kicked out of the house a lot. She just did not know how to deal with me. I was moved to a whole new country. Even though I was born in Australia, I learned how to read and write in Italy. And I had to learn everything from scratch. And socially, it was very different. I had starting to develop depression and anxiety and all sorts of mental illnesses because of the trauma. And then I ended up getting into a very bad relationship at 13, 14 to a guy who was incredibly abusive. He came from a very dysfunctional family, and I ended up basically living with him at that time because my mom could not handle me. So I was living between houses. I never had good stability. And he had severe mental illness himself, and he obviously enjoyed basically torturing me. It was fun for him to test me all the time and do all sorts of crazy things. So long story short, it just became a mess. It just got worse and worse. And I developed an eating disorder because I, again, was trying to control something in my life. So I guess I tried to control my body. And thank God that relationship, I was with this person for 3.5 years, which is a very long time. And that, of course, does more damage. He was physically violent as well, so he would sometimes hit me. But it was mostly the mental torture that was the real thing. Most people in abusive relationships will tell you that. It's like the mental torture that the partners do that really messes with you more, because it's somebody that you love. It's somebody that especially when I was that young, I was so desperate for love because I didn't have it anywhere else, so I didn't find it anywhere else. My mother was struggling just to, function, I guess, and my father was in another country, and my brother and I were never close, so I was very alone, and so this person that I thought I had this connection to, it's really heartbreaking when the person that you love the most in the world and you would do anything for just belittles you and mocks you and abuses you. It's another level of torture. So long story short, he cheated on me, and then I ended up finally breaking up with him, which was very difficult. And from there, I started to get a little bit better. And I went to acting college, where I found my first love, my first joy. I got into acting and I loved it. I was obsessed with acting, still am. And life started to get a little bit better. But of course, there was these years and years of unhealed trauma. I never really dealt with it. I did see some therapists, and I did start to do some kind of basic work because I knew there was some issues. They were so obvious, that the abuse and all that sort of stuff. But the real evidence of that trauma had not started showing up until later, because what happens is when you're in fight or flight mode, I was in survival mode for so long, your body is just like, all right, we're going to contain this down until, of course I was acting up with the anger and the violence and all that sort of stuff. But until then, when you start feeling a little bit safer, then your system is like, okay, now it's time to heal. And then this is when the problems start really showing up, when you start having nightmares and your things start showing up. So I became essentially, I started smoking marijuana at some point. I can't remember how old I was. Again, timing for me is a real problem. Yeah. But I know it was my 20s, and that was it. I was hooked, because obviously I was suffering from severe depression, and I was self-medicating to basically cope with what was going on. And it became a problem. It became a severe problem. People really underestimate how much marijuana can be an issue. It's like drinking and alcohol. Some people don't have a problem with it, and some people have a severe problem with it. And for me, it became a severe problem. It became a crutch. I couldn't go 2 minutes without it. I'd smoke day and night all day. And I was functioning. I was very high functioning. But again, we're talking about suppressing more emotions, not dealing with the problem. And I knew I had problems. And when you're young, you don't have the tools and but I had started meditating, and I was aware of the spiritual stuff, and I suddenly had a near-death experience. Well, not quite a near-death experience. I almost died. I used to work in a mental institution, and on the night that I had my shift, my client set the house on fire with me in it and 2 other clients. So I knew, I heard a voice because I had to go. One of the clients was stuck back inside the house, and I tried to go back in to catch her for the second time to get her out, but all of the emergency lights went out. By that point, the smoke had gotten so thick that it was very dangerous to go in, and the roof was on fire. The metal fence outside, I didn't know metal could even be on fire. Like, the metal fence outside was on fire. It was bad. And I heard this voice say, if you go in there, you're not coming back out. So I decided to not, because I passed out and I crawled on the floor and I went out the first time. It's a whole story there. That's a whole other thing. But long story short, the cops came and picked her up. And in that moment, they got her out. And in that moment, I sat there looking at this fire, and I was like very peaceful. And I knew in my head, I was like, if I don't go after my dreams, I'm going to regret this. So that was it. I decided to pack up. I had very bad PTSD after that because of smoke, but that's okay. I already had plenty of PTSD prior to that. And then I packed up and I moved to the US. And that was a whole adventure. And again, the moving to the US with, trying to get the visa, and it was a whole adventure. But I was very much into spirituality at this point, and I realized that there was some problems going on with me, with my depression, with my addiction. I starting to fix my eating disorder, but I was just having issues. Relationships, I was attracting a lot of abusive people. I was creating cycles. I was becoming very aware of the bigger picture of my life and what was going on. And I knew there was something very wrong. And I was like, I want to fix this. So I just started doing a lot of spiritual work around this time. And I started obsessing over self-help books and podcasts and all this sort of stuff. And this is where the meditation channel, my YouTube channel, actually was born, because I remember hearing Louise Hay saying that the most powerful thing that you can do is do affirmations, and do affirmations to yourself with your own voice. So at this point, I was trying everything possible. And I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to start recording. And then suddenly these meditations started to come through. And so I started recording these meditations, and then I was like, oh, maybe I should just share it. And I started putting them on the YouTube channel, and that's how basically the meditation channel was born, out of self-healing, basically. Then I ended up having a complete ego death. I developed a panic disorder, and I had to pack everything up and move back to Australia because my body couldn't take it anymore. I ended up completely disassociating for 3 months. I was working too much. I was trying too hard. I was not eating enough. I was again in survival mode because that's what my body knew. Now that I look back, I never really understood what it was like to be calm, at peace, and relaxed. And so I ended up developing this panic disorder, and it was really, really bad. I could not, it's like I wasn't in my body. Suddenly it just was like, if I moved my hand, it took me a minute to realize that I moved my hand. It was literally like my soul had shot out. It was like, I'm done. You are too much. I am out. So I moved back to Australia for a while. I had to pack up everything because I could not function. My head was spinning. I couldn't eat. I was not a normal human by that point. I was literally having a complete psychotic breakdown. And I went and got help. I did some therapy, and then I decided to move back to the US again to try again. And that's when I really started to make some bigger shifts. I started to really dive even deeper into the healing and really understanding what was going on. But by that point, I had developed a lot of skills. Still, I've learned a lot. But the wisdom is not wisdom until you really apply it, right? It's like you can apply it when you really make a decision that this is it. This is what I'm going to do. I've always struggled with severe depression and anxiety. And it was just normal for me to be like that. It wasn't and it's torture. It's horrible. So I finally decided to quit smoking, and I started to make some changes, and I started to actually looking at myself, and I started to implement all these changes. Meditation was a consistent around that time. And I just started to really do the work. affirmations every day. I started to meditate consistently every single day. I would journal. I would do all of the work, mirror work. I would start changing my relationships, especially my romantic relationships, because I realized I was in a pattern, in a cycle, and I was attracted to people who basically did not care about me or did not prioritize. Not every single one, because the good ones I would sabotage. The good ones, I was the bad guy, so that's how it works, right? But the bad ones I would want, and then they were the ones who, of course, would basically, and I want to premise this as well. When we're in abusive relationships, it does sometimes take two to tango. We might start off as the victim, but at some point I did see myself becoming, aggressive myself, even towards my younger boyfriend. I mean, some of it was also self-defense. But what I realized is that I started to realize that relationships were a mirror to the relationship I had to myself. And I was like, why am I attracted to these abusive relationships? And number one, it was familiar. But number two, I was abusing myself. I had all that trauma and that abuse that I had experienced as a child. I had turned it onto myself. I mean, the eating disorder, the addiction to smoking, that's self-abuse. It's not self-respect. And so I started to see things a lot clearer, and it's really hard to change. It's really difficult. It's not an easy thing, but I made a commitment that I would be sober for a year. I was going to say, I'm not going to smoke for a year. And if something changes in my life, then I know this works. But if nothing changes, I can always go back, because you got to give yourself, as an addict, you have to give yourself the possibility that this is something, because then you hold on to it too much and it can backfire. Of course, I never went back. Everything changed. Everything got better. My energy, my mood. And then the more meditations, I started creating my own meditations, and this really started to really change my frequency. And suddenly I did not have depression anymore. I was no longer anxious. I was no longer depressed. And then I met my husband, who's now my husband. At the time, he was my friend for a long time. And then we started dating 3 years after we were friends. And then the engagement and marriage happened pretty fast after that. Having the first healthy relationship with somebody genuinely cared about me and prioritized my well-being and wanted me to feel loved and seen. It was such a beautiful experience. So the relationships started changing and my life started changing, and things just started to get better and better and better, basically. And that's how I knew I was doing something right. And now I'm helping a lot of people by teaching them the techniques, the methods, the meditations that I do. And, excuse me. And, it's still a journey. I always tell people that healing is one of the things is acceptance of the fact that healing never ends. We like to think that we get to an end and everything's going to be great and fantastic. And, I'm healed. And it doesn't work like that. It's constant layers. So now I've noticed that I'm at that phase right now where I have to upgrade my life again. And I'm in that phase where I am having to hone down and do the work again. I'm always doing the work, but there are certain times where you really have to step the game up. And it's more to upgrade my life now because I know I can get to the next level, and I've hired a coach and all this sort of stuff. But and I also want to be more of service to my clients and to my audience, because I really enjoy helping people and being of service. It's such a fulfilling thing when people say, you've really helped me and this has really given me something, because I know what that's like. I know what it's like not to have anything and being so desperate just to feel okay, just to be able to breathe. My depression was so bad that I couldn't even get out of bed sometimes. So when I started to heal, I would roll out of bed and fall onto the floor because then I had to get up. So, I'd force myself because I'm like, this is a non-negotiable, because we're either going to check out or we're going to check in, and for me, I always say to people who want to end their life, I always tell them that they're in such a position of power when they're in that place. Because why do you want to end everything? You want to end everything because somehow you put something external much more important than your happiness, than who you are. It could be the opinions of others, your image. For me, it was wanting to become the successful actress meant everything to me. Because if I became successful, then everything that I went through, all the pain and the suffering, was worth something, and also the acting was the first love of my life, it just made me happy or whatever. So I was obsessed with it, but I made that my identity. And when I was not able to achieve that at the rate that I wanted to anyway, that was excruciating pain, because for me, it was like, if I can't have this, then there's no point in me being alive. Especially somebody who doesn't have much, when you put it all, sometimes it can pay off, but I was addicted. I was showing up to audition stoned. I was not connected, so no surprise. My career just went down after that. Now, of course, it's getting better and everything is a whole other thing. But when your identity, which is your ego, is connected to something so strongly and you can't have it, is so painful. And so when I had my anxiety attack and all that sort of stuff, I decided to let go of it. And it was like an ego death, because I had to have an identity death. I was like, I know I identify myself so strong, but this is causing me so much pain and suffering now. You can't manifest something positive out of that amount of negative experience. I had so much resentment. I had so much anger. I mean, I moved from another country to become an actor, I did everything right to make it happen, and it didn't. And you just feel cursed. You feel like, what's the point? And you're miserable. You are so, so miserable. So in that sense, what I'm trying to say is that when you have everything to lose, you have an opportunity to start fresh. Because if you're going to check out, if you decide to end things, I believe that you have to come back. So I was like, I could come back and have to do this all over again, and then have to go through all the levels again, which we don't know really how that's going to go. Or I can make a decision right now to just pursue what makes me happy, to find my happiness wherever that is. And I'm not going to give it an identity. I'm not going to say, this is the thing, because that's what I did. And I didn't get it. And then therefore I was a loser and I was a failure and all these sort of things, So that's, to me, is the most powerful, because I stopped caring what people thought, because I was willing not to be here. And that's a very powerful place to be. Of course, we care about the people that we love, that they have a good opinion. But I'll give you an example. My father is a very level-headed person, in the sense of he does not believe in spirituality. He's an atheist. He just, he thinks you die. That's it. You know what I mean? And he thinks all of this stuff is woo-woo, stupid, fantasy, insane, So if I listened to my father, when I went down the route that I wanted to make him proud, I would have never written my book, done my oracle deck, helped people, created my meditation channel. So yes, of course, we want to make our parents, we want our parents support, and the people that we love support, and all that sort of stuff. But if that's going against your nature, that it's going to cause you suffering, and so I just decided that I didn't care anymore. And I'm just going to do what I love. And if I'm going to get criticized for it, that's okay, because nobody can beat me up more than I beat myself up. So now I'm doing great. I'm so much happier. I don't, not to say that I don't have a bad day, I don't have a bad week here and there, but I have tools, I have mechanisms, I have beautiful people around me who genuinely care about me, which is so difficult to create positive, healthy relationships, especially when you come from that toxic place that I was in. And not to say that I didn't have good friends, okay? But, the real people that are going to be with you and really help you when things are really difficult. In fact, when I actually ended up having my nervous breakdown, I was left alone. I didn't have anybody. So that's why I had to go back to Australia, because I had one friend who came to bathe me, because I had been in bed and I hadn't eaten for 2 or 3 days. But that's kind of sad, and it also probably says about me at the time, where I maybe was not, I thought I had strong connections with people, but if that's how, I'm like, maybe I wasn't, and I really changed a lot of things. So that's it. That's where I'm at now. And here we are. Hopefully I answered your question. It was a very long story. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, everybody has a story, and I think everybody has, traumas. I think some of us are, we've made it. I mean, and again, this could also be, as spiritual as I am, I'm also very logical. I always think that sometimes, maybe we say these things to make ourselves feel better, but I do feel like, we choose, in a sense, some of the traumas because it gives us the skills to then teach it to other people. If you heal yourself. And I always tell a lot of my clients is it's a hard one to hear, but the very things that you're struggling with in your life is the very gift behind that. If you can fix it, or if you can heal it. And I always say that healing is the opposite of where you're at. So it's like if you break a bone, the healing is the mending. So if you're in fear, the healing is love. And so that can kind of help you. So if you're where I was, when my power was taken away, where I felt powerless, my healing was to find my power. And when you find your power from there, you know, and I still got a lot to go. You know what I mean? I still have so much to do. But it's when you get there, it's such a beautiful experience because then it makes everything like, okay, now I get it, you know?
What did healing teach you about self-worth?
Okay. So with self-worth, I will say that if you asked me in my 20s if I had self-worth, I would tell you that I did. And I was overcompensating. I didn't. And you know how you know it? Because you allow certain behaviors and certain cycles and certain things to happen. You allow yourself to break your own promises. You say that you're never going to do something, but you do it. You allow people to treat you really badly, and you essentially treat yourself badly. So somebody with self-worth would not do any of those things. Somebody with self-worth would have strong boundaries. They will not tolerate certain things. They will have clear understanding of their morals, and they will not compromise those things. And now even, you know, there are certain things that now I finally understand, you know, as I'm getting older, and I realized I had no self-worth. I wanted to, and I thought I wanted to, and I would overcompensate by maybe being opinionated or aggressive or loud or big. It was like, I got this, and like, you know, extra confidence. But confidence also doesn't mean self-worth. You can have no self-worth and still be confident, because confidence is a moment that I have, and I'm going to do this. Confidence and self-worth together, that's an amazing combination. You know, I was always very confident. I always believed I could do things, but I compromised a lot of things, you know, because I had no self-worth. Australia and LA, two different worlds. The film industry, very different world. Okay. So I'm like almost willing to do anything at this point. So a friend of mine, she was like, hey, I know somebody who knows somebody who they're always like introducing. And I didn't know that. And I'm 25. I'm very beautiful. I know that. I'm attractive. Great. I can use that in my advantage. But luckily I had some boundaries and some, you know, but this is little girls don't, you know, because they don't have any self-worth or self-esteem. And again, if you do, that doesn't mean you don't have also self-worth and self-esteem. I would kept putting myself in these situations where I'm just like, what do you think is going to happen at some point? You know, and that's again the self-worth, because I wanted this thing so badly that I was willing to compromise my safety for something hopefully to happen. And again, we all have our moments where we will do silly things, right? We end up doing these things, right? So if this was me right now, you know, I would not allow that. You know, I would not probably tolerate. I'll be very clear with my intentions with the person. I don't have to be rude, but I'd just be like, hey, listen, look, I get it, you know, but no. Thank you. We get ourselves into these really tricky situations because number one, you're young and you don't know any better and whatever. But number two, it's because again, I didn't have any self-worth or any self-value that my safety is important, that my mental health is important, that my well-being is important, that my peace is important, you know, and that these things can create even more trauma in my life that then I have to fix later on. So prioritizing my well-being and understanding where my boundaries are and understanding and not lying to yourself in these situations, making excuses because you give yourself 20 million reasons why this is fine, when deep down, you know this is not fine. Does that make sense?
Just to clarify, self-worth is for everyone. It's not only for men or women. It's for everyone.
Oh, it's a good one. Absolutely. And again, people really do, I think, misunderstand confidence with self-worth. You know, a man, in my opinion, with self-worth is a man who, you know, for me, I love men who create containers for women. So they're supposed to create a safe space for women so that they can blossom, right? My husband is doing beautifully. And I have been able to heal and get better and better because of him. And hopefully my nurturing or mostly my teaching, I think, the nurturing has helped him to grow and be more motivated. And so, you know, that's a good dynamic, you know, but can be very confident, but not have any self-worth. And again, they lie, they cheat, or they'll have strong boundaries or strong morals. And that's, I think, again, where it sways. And then when they say one thing, they do another. And that's not a man with any self-worth, because a man who's got self-worth, they know their worth. They know what they can give, and they know what they can provide for themselves and for somebody else. And a man who's in their power, a true man who's in his power, can be incredibly powerful. Same way with a woman, you know. Yeah.
Is meditation important to do?
I used to work in rehab. I worked in a rehabilitation center for, I think it was like 1.5 years or 2 years. So I was dealing with people who were withdrawing from substances, all walks of life. And that was always one of the things that I would hear is like, I can't meditate. I can't sit down for 2 minutes. And I was like, well, can you sleep? And they're like, yep. And I'm like, well, then you can meditate. Because if you put a guided meditation while you're falling asleep, your brain is still hearing the information. So your brain is still receiving the healing. So if you cannot sit down for 5 minutes and meditate, then the least you could do is do something like, while you fall asleep, you could play something like a meditation to help you fall asleep and let that play in the background. Now, if they say they can't do that, well, okay, then I can't help you at this point, you know. But, you know, meditation is in my opinion, the most powerful tool because it accesses the brain. The brain is how we filter the world. Now, because of my experiences, I filter the world very differently to somebody else who maybe had a happier childhood. And everybody needs it, by the way, because this world is a mess anyway. But if I don't go into the computer and shift that program, because by the age of 35, the subconscious programming is locked in. And if I don't go in there and work it, this computer is just going to go back to survival mode, which is, for me, it's being anxious, negative. You know, it's not a good place. The world is a horrible place. So I go in every day and I basically calm down the nervous system. You slow down the brain waves because that's where you can reprogram the computer. Because if you're awake and doing things, you're not really absorbing information. This is why we close our eyes and go within. And then I choose the information, the energy to rewire my brain in. Now, when I talk about the meditation, this is very important because people don't understand this. We heal on a subconscious level. We don't heal on a conscious level. Because if I was conscious, I would make the choices. Oh, I don't want to drink. I still go and have a glass of wine every night. Okay. Why do I do that? Because it's subconscious. It's not a conscious thing. So meditation accesses the subconscious. Here's the kicker though. The subconscious speaks like the dream state. It's not conscious. It's not like, you got to stop doing this. Okay. You know, it's like the dream state where you walk into the kitchen and there is a unicorn there and you're like, okay, that's totally normal. You know, in the subconscious mind, it speaks through colors, through images, through symbols, through emotions, through frequencies. So meditation, when I channel it, that's what I'm accessing. These energies, these frequencies, these images, and I receive it and I'm guided. So all my meditations usually, like say 90% of them, are practices that I'm doing on myself. And I'm just speaking them out and I'm teaching other people how to do it for themselves. So it's self-healing really the entire time. So that's why it's a little bit complicated. But I would say that somebody who cannot do it, you cannot help somebody who doesn't want to change. Truth of the matter is that most healers and empaths will face this at some point where I wanted to rescue my whole family. I wanted people like, this is amazing. You can change your life and you can get better and come with me and I will show you the way. And I promise you, there was like, you'll be saved. You know, we all want to do that, right? And I was like, trust me. But if somebody doesn't want to do the work, they're gonna drag you down and it's gonna cause you suffering. So the only thing that you can do is improve yourself, because through seeing you getting better and healthier and like that, hopefully that inspires them. Unless they choose to try it and experience it. But meditation, not every meditation is going to be like, oh, that was an awakening. It's like brushing your teeth. It's like, you know, a daily thing that you have to do, or at least like having a shower. If you don't shower for like a few days, you're going to start stinking. So I see meditation the same way. If I don't meditate for 2 or 3 days, I notice my brain going back to the old ways. This is science, because this is of the neural pathways. You cannot destroy a neural pathway. You can only create new ones. And so when you create new neural pathways, they have to get stronger and override the old one. So you're reprogramming the brain, but this is like going to the gym. This is like, you have to do it on a regular basis to really see, in my opinion, the benefits. And it doesn't have to be like 3 hours every day. 5 to 10 minutes once a day is enough. Okay. So it's totally doable, but you have to prioritize it. You have to see it as something that's really going to change your life. And I know it does because I chose to do it. But if you don't, that's okay. Hopefully you can find something else. But in my opinion, it's the most obvious one, that going into the computer and you're choosing the frequency, you're rewiring, reprogramming it the way that you want to live, the way you want to be. And it's the most powerful tool that I found to do that.
Why people feel lonely even though they have everything in their lives?
So I can only explain what I experienced with loneliness. And I can tell you that when I was lonely was when I was unhealed, the most unhealed, or still very much in my trauma, and I was not aware of my trauma. And I think loneliness is an extreme form of self-abandonment. It's not able to have a relationship with yourself. You don't have a healthy relationship with yourself, or you don't have a relationship with yourself at all. When I did the healing and I started liking myself and actually enjoying my own company, I loved it. I love being by myself, but I'm talking from somebody who was desperado. Okay. I was desperado. Okay. To have a partner. Like, I was desperate. I hated being single. I hated being alone. So of course, the typical thing when you meet your partner, I didn't care. By that point, I'd done so much work on myself. I was so happy to be alone. If I met somebody, if I didn't, I was so whatever, And of course, then I met my husband. But I really believe it's because there is essentially, you haven't established a relationship with yourself. You're rejecting the self. And this means the good, the bad, and the ugly, as well as the light. And it's just self-rejection and not having a relationship with yourself. So when we have a relationship with ourselves, we talk to ourselves, we do our best to make ourselves our best friends and not our enemy, basically. Because I was my enemy most of my life.
Can gratitude help someone who's going through tough time in their life?
But you see, I understand the whole gratitude energy thing, and I'm so for it now. But if you asked me when I was in my depression and my self-hatred state to be grateful, wouldn't have gone well. You can't, when you're in such a low frequency and you're in so much pain, the idea of gratitude is actually very painful, because you have to understand you're vibrating at this level and gratitude is up here. You have to jump from here to here. That is an emotional stretch that for some people is actually physically painful to do. So it's always like, even with affirmations or anything, when we're trying to change, we can't jump from one to another. We have to do baby steps. Okay. So gratitude would be too much. Somebody who's been, let's just say, they don't have a home, that, I mean, if they can do that, that's amazing. Right. But if they don't have a home, they've been beaten and abused their whole lives, they've never had anybody loving them. It's like, well, you should just be grateful. And they're like, they're going to be like, because I even had a family member once say to me, when I was depressed, I was like, you should just be happy. And I'm like, yeah, really? That's this? Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't think of that, but it's like the idea of being happy was painful. It's weird. It's a weird concept, because you have identified and you built such an identity around even being alone or suffering. People can enjoy that. It makes you, I will say something like, for instance, for people who have depression, for instance, when I started healing my depression, I really had to look at why I wanted to be depressed. And I had to make it a choice. I took the power away from everything on the external and I put everything on myself. This is not a blame game. This is not victim blaming. This is taking accountability and responsibility, because if I don't take some responsibility, I can't change it. I don't have the power to change it. So I realized that I had identified as somebody who's very powerful in my depression. And I was. If I walked in the room and I had that big black cloud around me, Everybody feels it. And everybody, do not talk to that girl. Do not mess with that girl. It's a repellent, right? Because I didn't want people to come near me, because people in my world, you hurt me, to stay away. So I had to understand, what was I gaining by holding on to this identity? Okay. And then once I realized, I was like, well, is this serving me now? Because everything has cause and effect. It's serving me in the sense it's protecting me. But at the same time, I can't make any friends, or I can't build proper relationships, because you're going to have to put up with somebody who's like Debbie Downer, you know? So, and then of course I would use weed as like the upper and like the shields to pretend that everything was great. And then of course, once the weed was gone, I was back down to the depths of hell. So once I started to say, okay, what if I could become a happy person? What if I could be a person who is light and open? It's such a stretch for the mind to do that. But I was like, that is an identity that I would like to be. And, you know, the thing is, when you have yourself, you realize that you can create those boundaries without that identity. So now if somebody crosses a line, and I've had to cut out certain people in my life because they've crossed, I can see the patterns now, I can see it. I don't put up with certain things anymore. And I do it with love. I do it with kindness. But I don't need to have that heavy cloud to protect myself anymore from those people. I just can do it now in the light. I can just be like, no, thank you. I'm sorry. This is not healthy. This is not for me. And so sorry, I think we went off track with the gratitude thing. I went on a rant, but I would say affirmations. I would say change, begin. It all starts with the way that you think. Identity. Okay. So when you identify as somebody who's depressed, if I said to you, what do you think my thoughts are going to be like? Right? It's pretty obvious. We're all going to know what this person's going to be saying to themselves, right? They're going to be talking negatively. And I remember very clearly the words I would say to myself in my head before I even get out of bed. You're a loser. Nobody loves you. You're not going to amount to anything. You're a disaster. You're fat. You're ugly. You're stupid. These are the things that we talk to ourselves this way. And this is what I'm talking about, the self-abandonment and not having a relationship with yourself. So I would say if somebody's struggling with that, you've got to change the inner dialogue first and foremost. You have to change the way that you talk to yourself. You have to have self-respect. That is not self-respect. You are abusing yourself. You are belittling yourself, and you're treating yourself like, if I was talking to somebody that way outside, out loud, are you kidding me? So one of the first things that I started changing is I started doing affirmations, because I was obsessed with Louise Hay. I loved her. You can heal your body, because it made sense. I was like, this makes sense. And for somebody who was so negative and so pessimistic and so cynical, I was like, I'm so much pain that I don't care. I'm going to try anything. I will say with affirmations, it's very, very important though. Again, like the gratitude and the negativity and the gratitude, you cannot go from I hate myself to I love myself. It's too much of a stretch. It's your body's going to be like, yeah, right. We know that you don't love yourself. Are you joking? Have you seen yourself? But what I can say is I'm learning how to love myself. If somebody else has learned how to do it, then I can figure it out. Then when you start believing that, then you can upgrade, and then you upgrade, and then you upgrade. And what are you doing here is you're building a relationship with yourself. You are creating a friendship with yourself. And then you don't hate yourself anymore. There's no longer an internal battle where you're punching yourself in the face every day, but you're actually supporting yourself and you're helping yourself. And even on the hard times, you're like, dude, that sucks, but all right, let's get back up. I used to high five myself. I used to hug myself. I started behaving as if I was two separate people. I will say another thing that maybe will help people as well. Your inner child, because I had to do a lot of inner child work, obviously because of my traumas as a child, is still inside of you. So when you abuse yourself, you're abusing that child as well. And this is the most powerful thing that helped me change. It's like every time I call myself an idiot, I was picturing myself telling my 5-year-old, you're an idiot. Do you understand that how you're recreating that trauma over and over again? So now I started to think of it, how if there was a little me in front of me who I'm trying to save because of everything that she's been through, What if I say something kind to her? What would she need to hear right now? You're loved. I'm so sorry that you went through this. I'm here. I'm going to be your new parent. I'm going to become your hero. I'm going to fight. These are the things that we need to talk and say to each other. You got to be on your side. And listen, I'm still working on that. It's not like it's perfect, but I don't sit here and call myself names anymore. I don't sit here and say, oh, you're an idiot. Even just that, even as a passing, such an idiot. You know, we can't do that. It's like, hey, it's okay. You'll figure it out. Or we got this. Or, this is one of the most important. And I still do affirmations every single day if I can. And I write them down. I don't just say them. I will say them. Mirror. I would do mirror affirmation. Very powerful. If you can do it, do it. Again, mirror is also a portal. Is a whole other thing there. I got to do more mirror work as well. Then you just remind me. I think I just have to tell myself to start doing it. But I will write down affirmations, and I notice such a difference when I do it. And I also use affirmations now when I want to manifest something specifically. So I tell myself that I can have this thing, that I'm worthy of it. You see? And most people, the first thing that they do is what? When they look in the mirror, they start tearing themselves apart. Oh, you're ugly, you're fat, you're losing your hair. And again, that's the relationship that you're creating, and that's the reality that you're creating. I mean, if you even think about in Feng Shui, just to give you an idea of what mirrors they're amplifiers. So you're amplifying now that belief, and you're amplifying that thing. So at least be neutral if you can. Don't have an opinion, or don't put yourself down, at least, if you cannot give yourself a compliment. Does that make sense? And then from there, if you can say something nice. But somebody who loves themselves, they'll look at themselves in the mirror and go, hey, how you doing? They'll give themselves compliments. They'll talk to themselves in a good way, So, sure, I have my Oracle deck. Let me just get my sample deck. Give me 1 second. So I designed an Oracle deck. It's called the Realms Oracle deck. So I love to give readings. I do readings on Insight Timer. It's one of the things that I've been doing since I was like 10 years old. I've always had a thing with cards, so I just decided to design my own. So I guess we could just do a collective message. Is there any questions that maybe you have specifically on what we can work on for this? You can even ask like a general question to get answers around it. It doesn't have to be like a reading for a specific person. It could be a question about empowerment, or I don't know, or just what the frequency is for the people that are watching. Okay.
We can do the frequency one.
Okay, so let's see what comes up. So the way I do my readings is very different to most readers. I just let the cards fall out. I don't know why it became my new thing, and there you go. And it just made sense. Okay. Get maybe one more card just to complete it. I always like the number 6. Anything else? Oh, there we go. Oh, love it. Okay. So the first card that we got is the Snake People. Okay. So the Snake People. Sorry, my hamsters I have a little rescue here as well, just so you guys know. So I have animals around me. Okay. So the Snake People invite you to connect with your ancestors and your family lineage. Whatever situation you are facing, now it's the time to heal and break the cycle. Within you lies ancient wisdom. Just as we inherit the lessons and traumas of our family, we also carry their gifts. Embrace this power, for it holds the key to your transformation and freedom. So what I love about this, I think what's coming up here, I think it also encompasses everything that we talked about, is that as much as we, a lot of the things that we experience, I do really believe it's also like in our lineage. We make, depending on our bloodline and our family, this is something that I think that the people that are watching need to really look into as well. You think about cycles, for instance, of like alcoholics in the family, that sort of stuff. So if we catch that pattern, it is our job to heal that. And how do we heal that? We break the cycle. When we break the cycle, we're not just breaking the cycle for ourselves, but we're actually breaking it for the future generations and the past generations. So one of the things I will say, for instance, is like in my family, for instance, there's a lot of hunters in my family, people who killed a lot of animals. My husband's the same, and I'm a vegan. So by becoming vegan, I am breaking that karmatic cycle within the family of creating that negative energy of killing. And, again, that's stuff that I strongly believe in this. So it made sense. So I am creating a new energy, a new timeline within the bloodline by healing that. You could be anything really, of course, so stopping an addiction or whatever, all of those things, right? However, I will say that this is also coming up to remind people also to look into the gifts of their family. This is something that they can amplify. So let's just say you grew up in a family with a lot of wealth. Why not tune into that? So some things like, I want to connect to this more, getting your ancestors essentially to help you to amplify that energy so you can receive those downloads and gifts. So reminding yourself that you have both. The next thing that we got is the kitchen witches. So speaking of veganism, this could relate to as well, of course, of what we eat. But when we get the kitchen witches, it's really all about being aware of what you're taking in. There is a level of control that we do have as to the energies and information that we take in. So an example could be when I used to wake up in the morning, and I still have to check myself with this one. I'd get on social media because it would wake me up. Okay. I would get onto the phone, that light will wake you up, and then the emotional activation would get me going. But it's like playing Russian roulette, right? I could get a really good, happy, most of the time, not so, or I could get something really distressing on my social media that would like completely upset me for the rest of the day. So changing your habits and choosing what to ingest is so, so important, especially when we're talking even in bloodline and stuff like that. So now I have a book near my bedside, and right now I'm reading a book called Don't Believe Everything That You Think. And I just read a couple of pages or a chapter of that, and then I get out of bed. So you do have choice. Yes, it's difficult. Of course, I'd rather go on social media. Of course, I'd rather go on TikTok. Of course, I'd rather do all these things. But again, these are choices that somebody would make with self-respect and self-value, as opposed to somebody who doesn't respect themselves and value themselves. Okay. So again, that identity shift, if you are looking into identity shift and upgrading and manifesting, these are practices that you have to just start doing. It's not about feeling good, it's knowing what the right thing is to do and just do it, because you will feel good about it later. You will get that reward. And then we got the dolphin people. Okay. So dolphin people is all about distraction. So what is this telling me right now is that the puzzle's coming together, right? So I feel like what's coming through is a lot looping back to the meditation of like tuning into your higher self and wanting to be your higher self. Again, like I said, the world is designed to distract us. Okay. There's substances, there's TV, there's all sorts of things, right? But when you want to become something or do something the same way, like let's go back to my story, when I made the decision that I wanted to heal, that requires change. That requires no longer getting distracted by the things that, yes, they made me feel good at the time, but they weren't exactly the best things, like smoking. I loved it. It was fun. And of course, but it's got its repercussions. So when the dolphin people comes up, it's like, you got to remember, you got to make a goal. You got to have a vision. You got to understand where you want to go. And that can change as you go as well. Because sometimes people don't commit to a goal because they think, if I commit to this, what if it's wrong? What if, oh my God. And then I just wasted all this time. It's like, no, make a decision that's going to get you ahead. The more ahead you go, the clearer the vision's going to be, then you adjust as you go. But people don't really want to commit. They'll end up just basically like social media or going out drinking or whatever it is. They're going to use those excuses to distract them, and then they wonder why they never got there. So having that goal, choosing what you're ingesting, aligning with that you want to achieve and receive, and then move forward. The next thing as well that we got is the Cosmic Witches. I love this card because this card is also about not being afraid to ask for something big and for dreaming big. A lot of us, limit ourselves. And I find a lot of my clients, for instance, they're just, that some of them don't have a lot of big self-esteem, or they'll settle for things. And it's fine if that's what you want, but then just be honest with yourself that if you're really happy or not. But what I will say is, yes, sometimes when you dream big and you don't get it, it can be a heartbreak, like for me with the acting thing, right? But shoot for the moon, and if you miss, at least you'll still be amongst the stars. It's like, if I didn't have this big dream, I wouldn't have moved to the US. I wouldn't have, done all of this work and learned so much and done so much self-work, and I could have been a very different person. So having such a big dream will get you much farther sometimes. So not to be afraid sometimes to ask for that. The next thing that we got is the demonic card. So there are entities and there are beings out here that are trying to stop people from achieving. You know, I recently had a healing. I hired a coach and we found that I had an entity attached to me. And they attack light workers. They attack people like me and like you because we are here to do good. And they're trying to dim our light. They don't want us to be in the light. They create traumas in childhood and all sorts of experiences because you could be somebody who could really shift the world. So this is really just fragmentation that happens. And again, talking again of not having a relationship with yourself is because you've been fragmented from yourself. When you unite with yourself, you're in your light, you're in your power. But when you fragment, this is when you start doing things and saying things that aren't in alignment with who you really are. This is why I would do silly things like put myself in these situations because I wasn't in alignment with who I really was. So it's almost like I'm seeing like the demon and the angel here, right? So we got the devil and the angelic, right? Everything you do at this point is a choice. Yes, the things that happened to you in the past, the traumas, the experiences, that wasn't your choice. But now it is. And I'm not saying it's still not difficult. I'm still not saying that it's like, you know, sometimes we want to punch people in the face because we've all got those moments, right? But when you choose the light, when you choose to connect to that higher self, when you make decisions from that place, you're never going to regret it. So, and I always say to some people, it's like, if you don't know how to love yourself, that's completely normal. But if I asked you, what would somebody who loved themselves do? You would know the answer. So there is still that wisdom, that connection within you. So you just have to remember to connect to it, connect to it, connect to it. Every day, that should just be your practice and remembering who you are and just keep aligning with that and following through with your behaviors, with your intentions, with your thoughts, with all of it. And that's how we get there. So that's it. Just pay it out. You know, and you can, I really am like, I wouldn't have made the changes if I didn't believe it was possible. And you have to have a part of you that believes you can do it and possible. And you have to have a part of you that believes you can do it. And that's again, the self-worth and self-esteem thing, you know, it's like people give up because they don't believe. And that's a hard one. I understand. But if you ask anybody who's achieved anything or become anyone, it's because deep down they had to believe, and call it delusion or whatever. As long as it's serving you and as long as you're not hurting anybody else, I'd say go for it.
Anyone interested in buying your book's Oracle card, where they can get it?
eBay, and if you go to my website, so www.meditation-channel.com, you can buy it there, eBay. For some reason, I'm having some issues with Amazon in my Oracle deck, but I think it's on there as well. But you can get my book on Amazon, all my books on Amazon. If you go to my website, everything should be there. I'm still redesigning it right now because I'm doing everything myself, but yeah, it's there. So I offer an array of things like courses. I offer one-on-one sessions, custom meditations, you name it, it's on there. But if anybody wants to reach out and have any questions, just contact me on the meditation channel. And yeah. So meditation@meditation_channel or Jaclyn 444. I'm an insight. And since I'm here, I'm actually developing my own app. So I'm going to have my own meditation channel app. So I would recommend that's the one to download because there'll be a ton of free stuff on there as well as the paid version. It'll be exactly like Insight Timer. So I'll have lives, classes, courses, meditations, and I'm very good at doing niche meditations. So I love requests from people. But it'll be like from health to very specific things like meditation for actors, meditation for writers, meditations for moms, meditations for children. So I constantly create and channel meditations. So, so there's all sorts of stuff on there that will come out soon. It'll be out in about a month from this.
Last question of this podcast. Who is responsible for one's happiness? People tend to blame their husbands, wives, boyfriend, girlfriend, families, parents. Here comes the victimhood. We start to play as a victim. What is your intake on this?
Everyone but yourself. It's everybody else's fault but yours. Look, of course, I think it really, of course, it comes down to yourself. If you don't know how to bake, I mean, I can now spend so much time by myself, and I'm always creating. It's like that little child comes out, and I'm always doing fun things, and I can spend all day by myself and have the best time ever. Of course, it's nice to be around certain people, but the people that you choose because you choose them, also, of course, have an impact on you. And if somebody's, abusing you, of course, that's not going to make you happy, right? So, I think, of course, it's always the self, but yourself is an extension of those around you as well. So just be wise as to who you surround yourself with. Be strong with, you create your world up to a point, and whatever you can change and have a power to do, then do it and make it the best that you can. Because, I do believe in reincarnation, but you're not going to remember it properly. So, think about it. You got one life, and this can be taken away like that at any moment. So you want to make sure that the time that you have here, you do everything that you can to make it the best for yourself. Or for others as well, of course, because we want to we want to be of service as well. That's very fulfilling. It's a way of being happy as well. I will say, if you have depression, one of the best things that you can do is do acts of service. It's going to help you a lot. I know it's hard to do when you're feeling like not great, but when you do something for somebody else, because it's a way of, in a way, rescuing yourself through others. Yeah, I did a ton of things, like even just going to, shelters or whatever you can do, giving food to the homeless. I mean, you got to be careful, of course, in this situation, because there are certain things that you don't want to put yourself into, but there are little things that you can do just to feel like you're giving something back and being a part of something greater than yourself. Yeah.
Thank you, Jaclyn, for sharing your very personal life stories, your experiences, your suffering, your pain, and following your passion about becoming an actress, and you did become an actress. It's for anyone out there who is going through tough times, any traumas, addiction, panic attacks, you name it, anxiety. It starts with you, and you should not give up. Try different things. First thing is to seek medical help, because without that, you don't know what is going on with you. Read books, do meditation, affirmation, something, because your will of changing matters the most. If you are not willing, no one can help you, and you're going to feel that everyone's against you. It's very hard, but this is for who really wants to make difference in their life. You have to make that bring that shift in your life. This is why this is called the inner shift. Wherever you are in your life, you have to be willing to make that inner shift. Do not give up. Your life is worth more than what you think. Keep trying. Seek help. I hope this podcast have touched many people, and I truly appreciate you, Jaclyn, for your presence today. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I really hope that this hopefully reaches the right people. That's always the intention. And I really hope that we continue the healing journey together, because I think that's the key to healing this world and each other, Namaste.